How you doing, everybody? Thank you very much. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr. Welcome to another classic movie review. I'm a big fan of the James Bond films. I've already reviewed the first two films in the series, Dr. No and From Russia with Love, on this channel if you want to check those out. Great films. And I'm talking about the third film in the series now. Came out in 1964, directed by Guy Hamilton, who would go on to direct a few more Bond films, movies like Live and Let Die, Diamonds Are Forever, The Man with the Golden Gun. But his greatest Bond film that he ever directed is definitely 1964's Goldfinger, starring the legendary Sean Connery. From the very first official Bond film, Dr. No, to its first sequel, From Russia with Love, it's very clear that Sean Connery was born to play the part of James Bond. He gave the character a sense of sophistication, charm, intelligence, ruthlessness, and even though he really knocks it out of the park in those first two films, it feels like in the third film he really comes into his own even more and feels even more settled into the part. And in this third film, he seems to have a lot of fun. It's always the villains that make or break these movies. If the villain is weak, then more than likely you're going to have a weaker movie. And we have a great villain in this film as the title character, played by Gert Frobe in the title role of Goldfinger. And as the Bond girls, we have Shirley Eaton, we have Honor Blackman. This movie also features a former wrestler turned actor Harold Sakata in the role of Oddjob, who is one of the greatest henchmen in the Bond series. He is one of those bad guys that really gives Bond a run for his money when it comes to the fighting department. And he is a guy that definitely has a distinctive trait about him, given that his big thing is taking his hat and using it as a weapon. He just kind of throws it like a frisbee, and it can take a head off of a statue, but for some reason, when it hits a person, it doesn't have the same effect. I think if this came out nowadays, it probably would show something a little more graphic, but back in the 60s, they weren't going to take anybody's heads off, but still, it is pretty cool to see him use it in the movie to take out somebody. The big fight scene between James Bond and the character of Oddjob in this movie is one of my all-time favorite scenes because James Bond is a character that usually has the upper hand when he's fighting somebody, but it's really cool to see him get his ass handed to him every now and then. And that's certainly the case when he goes up against Oddjob, who doesn't make it easy for him. Whenever I see stuff like that in action movies, I usually appreciate it because it's always nice to have a hero that isn't on God mode all the time. And when a hero does take a beating every now and then, it makes him feel a little bit more relatable, more vulnerable. It humanizes him a little bit. And so I really dig that approach when it comes to a character even like James Bond. With the exception of the very first Bond film, Dr. No, all 25 official Bond films usually have a pre-title sequence. There's something that happens at the beginning of the movie. Then we have a really cool opening sequence with the titles and really cool graphics and images. Then the movie begins and then we get the story. But in this third Bond film, even though it wasn't the first film to have a pre-title sequence, that honor goes to the second film, From Russia with Love. This is the first one where we have Bond on a little mini mission before the film, and the sequence in and of itself almost plays like a short little film since it has no relation to the rest of the story. Bond emerges from water wearing a wetsuit. He uses a really cool gadget to get over a wall, takes out a bad guy real quick. He infiltrates a undisclosed bad guy's lair where he plants some C4. He sneaks out, takes off the wetsuit. Underneath, he's completely dry, wearing his classic Bond tuxedo, the black pants with the white jacket. He goes to talk to a woman real quick, has a little, Bond and lady one-on-one time, and then, there's a little ambush thing happening where he takes out another bad guy. Bond takes out this bonehead using electrocution in a pretty cool and unexpected way. And because a moment ago he just took his jacket off while he was with his lady friend, puts the jacket back on, and right before he walks out of the room, he looks over at her and says, "Shocking." Then walks out, shuts the door. The title sequence begins. We get the song Goldfinger sung by Shirley Bassey, and then the rest of the movie begins where we get the actual story. And I just love when James Bond takes out a bad guy and then just has that perfect thing to say, that little quip that goes perfect with however the bad guy went out. Those little dark, jokes that can be corny but still a lot of fun. Usually there's a kind of a formal meet and greet when Bond meets the villain. A lot of these movies have a classic scene where Bond plays the villain in a little game of some sort. I think this is the first film in the series where that happens. Also, we have a classic scene where there is a woman that is killed, and there is a great reveal of her body being covered in gold paint. Actor Desmond Llewellyn made his first appearance as the character of Q in the previous film From Russia with Love, but in this film, we get one of the greatest scenes between Q and the character of Bond when Q is giving Bond his gadgets in Q's laboratory where he has all kinds of people around him working on the gadgets, and this is really the first great Q scene between Q and Bond. And this film is really the first time when the series would really start to rely heavily on gadgets. The dialogue between James Bond and Q in this film is very well written. It's very witty. They have that great back and forth kind of verbal jousting that will become kind of a hallmark trait of their scenes in many of the films that would follow. The Aston Martin DB5, the car that James Bond gets from Q for his mission in this film, is one of the all-time great gadgets in all the Bond films. Has some really cool features inside, machine guns, stuff that comes out of the hubcaps, little spiky things, and drops little spiky balls, and shoots out smoke and all kinds of stuff, and uses it to great effect. I'm not going to get into what happens ultimately in the third act. I don't even want to reveal the villain's ultimate plan because it is a really cool moment where the plan is revealed. And all I'm going to say is that the third act does end up in Fort Knox in Kentucky, and it is a pretty cool finale. Goldfinger is one of the greatest Bond films and one of the greatest action movies of the 60s. Has a lot of fun in it and a great performance from Sean Connery, so I do highly recommend you check it out. I do give it 4 stars, and it is a classic 60s Bond film. Definitely look for it on streaming. I've seen it a few times on Amazon Prime and other streaming services, since every now and then they'll have a bunch of Bond films on a single streaming service. Not usually all of them, but a good number of them. But like I'm always saying, hard copies are out there for now, for the time being, before they're all gone. Eventually they will be, so if you want to get yourself a hard copy, you can. This is my copy here of the Blu-ray. As you can see, that is Sean Connery as James Bond, looking very cool and calm, and like he's just having a chill day on a mission in Switzerland there, leaning on the Bond car, the Aston Martin DB5. 1964's Goldfinger, a classic Bond film. Check it out if you haven't seen it. Top tier Bond. Thank you all very much for watching this classic movie review. I very much appreciate you. If you're into classic movies, if you're into this kind of thing, please become a subscriber and hit that bell for notifications on more classic movie reviews to come. And please don't forget to comment and share, like. It all really helps out the channel. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for watching and thank you for your support. I very much appreciate you. Please take care of each other, look out for each other, and happy holidays. Take care. God bless. Peace out.